Alright, so it has started recording as well. I'm going to be sharing my screen. We are going to be going as
बस
well.
हमें से कोई भाई ड्रॉप हो जाए ना तो रिकॉर्डिंग रुकना मत, करते रहना, कंटिन्यू रखना.
Alright, perfect. ठीक है. So, hello everyone. Welcome back to the first video of the digital SAT prep, and in today's lecture we are obviously going to be knowing that the basic concepts that are going to be very much necessary for your SAT prep in the upcoming November series. So before that we proceed on, we're going to be leaning on towards the basic concept about almost everyone knows that what the SAT in actual is, and most of the people are preparing for the SAT as well. So for today's lecture and in the upcoming videos, we are specifically going to be covering the SAT English for the digital SAT for international students. The SAT is going to be available in digital version for the United States residents in 2024. So before we actually proceed on with the SAT English concepts, we need to lean on to understand that what the actual SAT is, what it is going to be assessing you on in the English portion, and what you have to do in order to ensure that you're readily prepared for the October series, or the series of your SAT prep as well. So here we go with this. We know that the digital SAT suit test specifications at a glance. There are going to be 54 questions on the English reading and writing section, and there are going to be 44 questions on the mathematics section. The total time allotted for the reading and writing section is going to be 64 minutes, whereas the total time allotted for the math section is going to be 70 minutes. So when we lean on towards this specific calculation, you are going to be having 1.17 minutes for a reading and writing section, whereas 2 to 3 minutes for a math section, which literally means that we have to pave in and put in more effort into the reading and writing section. So coming towards the syllabus content that's going to be assessed on the digital SAT, we are going to be having 4 main domains, which include craft and structure, which is further divided into the skills that are going to be tested are going to be words in context, text structure and purpose, cross-text connections. The second domain is going to be information and ideas. It is going to be leaning on towards the concepts of commanded evidence, how you would actually bring up an evidence about some specific claim that's going to be given in the text that you're going to be reading out. And by quantitative, it means that how you are actually going to be utilizing the information from the graphs. And then there's completing the sentences, which is also called as inferences. The third form is the standard conventions of English, which will include concepts like text structures, commas, punctuations, and all of these concepts are going to be tested on the standard conventions of English. And on the fourth domain, we are going to be having the expression of ideas, which include rhetorical synthesis, transitions, and this also leads on towards 20% of your SAT that's going to be assessed. The standard convention of English stands for 26%, information and ideas also stand for 26%, and craft and structure also stand for 28%. So all of this, when it is added up, it makes up to 100%. So if you have any problem, you can just let me know. You can just speak and I'll respond back to that question as well. So right now, as of yet, we have 15th of October, and we have our SAT on 4th November, which totally leaves us with like 16 days, 20 days to be very precise. And within these 20 days, we have to ensure that we are mastered at these 4 domains, which include the expression of ideas, standard conventions, information, idea, and craft structure, as mentioned earlier. So how are we actually going to be doing that and working on that without? So for the first day, which is 15th of October, we are going to be leaning on with this specific format or the pattern that's going to be essential for these classes. So for today, we are going to be leaning on towards basic concepts about leaning towards expression of ideas, because it is a relatively smaller topic and we can cover it in a day in 40 to 45 minutes. And then we are going to be doing some specific questions for today, and then guys are going to be given a specific assignment, and once you submit that assignment, and we'll cross check all the questions at the end of the day and ensure that if that specific question is correct, then why it is correct, and if it's wrong, then why it's wrong. Because we actually need to understand that on the SAT, self-analysis is extremely important, because we need to understand that, for instance, let's just suppose that you have made an incorrect option as a correct option, but what was your thought process? So within these 10 to 14 days, we are going to be leaning on towards concepts. We are going to be understanding that, oh, all right, if there was this specific question, why it went wrong, and where was I wrong myself? What, like, I knew the text, I read the text, and but what was the actual reason why it went on against all of these options? So because at the end of the day, only one option is going to be correct out of the four options, and we have to select that one option. So it's like a 25% relative probability that the option you choose is going to be correct. So we're going to be in the first 5 days, 4 to 5. We'll try to cover it up as soon as possible. So in the first 4 to 5 days, we are going to be covering all the concepts. Concepts as in terms of that for specific instance, that what is a specific question, what's it about, how it's going to be dealt with, and how it's going to be working upon. And in the next 5 days, we are going to be practicing. But practicing, I again mean that we are going to be having coherent practice, and we are going to be self-analyzing ourselves on that further analysis. And for the last remaining days, last 10 days, we are going to be self-studying, which means that if a specific question comes up, if a specific question is not going to be understood, we're going to be writing that question down, saving that question in a PDF, or taking a screenshot of that picture of that specific question. And once we have taken the screenshot, at the end of the day, we are going to be analyzing all of those mistakes, and we're going to be leaning on towards that concept. And within these 10 days, it would also include practices and other practice material that you have to practice yourself, because over the course of this specific time period, we are going to be working towards, because the questions we are going to be practicing in these 5 days are going to be questions from the SAT Suit Bank. Now, when most of you don't know what the SAT Suit Bank is, the SAT Suit Bank is a collection of questions that is made by the SAT and the College Board, and it provides you with almost around 1000 questions for the English section, and these are the actual real questions, and these questions similar to these are going to be tested on your SAT, and they would also expect that you know a lot about these questions, about the same format. So am I clear until now?
Yes.
Alright, perfect. So with that being said, we are going to be, are you guys alright? So I guess we can start on with the expression of ideas. Hello.
So let's do it.
Alright, perfect. So with that being said, I'm going to be moving towards the first topic for today, which is also a domain, and the specific domain covers two subcategories, which include rhetorical synthesis and the second part of this domain is going to be transitions. So we're going to be going on with these two types categorically, and we're going to be first understanding the concept of rhetorical synthesis. So before let's starting out with what the actual rhetorical synthesis is, let's just look up at one of the questions that's going to be has been provided to us for the rhetorical synthesis. So this is the website that I was previously talking about, this SAT Suit Question Bank, and I'm also going to be embedding the link for this down the description for the video. And here we go on the reading and writing section, and you can find the domain questions. You can select a specific question and then you can search it out. You can apply the specific filters, like you can set up the difficulty level, that if it's going to be easy, medium, hard, and then you can also select the skills that are going to be set up. So for right now, we are going to be looking at the rhetorical synthesis questions, and let's just see one of the hardest example which is going to be provided to us. So here's this question, and I'm going to be copying this question right now. So here we go. Here is this question. Let me just copy it. Alright, so this is the structure of the question that's going to be asked from us on the rhetorical synthesis. So you can also say it in most of the cases. It also mentioned a rhetorical synthesis question, whereas at some points you'd see it to be named as student notes questions. So in these types of questions, you're going to be provided with 4 to 5 text bullets, and it's all about going to be the content that's going to be provided to you, and then at the end there's going to be a specific thing that's going to be asked. They'll be asking you, as in this part it's directly going to be related to the text that's going to be provided to you, so you don't have to think, because one of the problems of the digital SAT is that we turn on our analytical mind, and it's extremely important to understand that if there's going to be a specific option for the answers, it's always going to be provided into the text, and you don't need to utilize on those concepts, and you don't need to ensure that this specific things works out in that specific way as well. So with that being said, we have this question. Can you guys give this question a try before we actually start knowing that how we need to solve this question?
Yeah, so how are we going to do it?
Yes, you can do it.
Do you want me to read out loud or just like this?
You can read it out loud.
Okay. As engineered structures, many bird nests are uniquely flexible yet cohesive. A research team led by Yashraj Busail wanted to better understand the mechanics behind these structural properties. His team used laboratory models that simulated the arrangement for flexible sticks into nest-like structures. The researchers analyzed the points where sticks touched one another. When pressure was applied to the model nests, the number of contact points between the sticks increased, making the structure stiffer. The student wants to present the primary aim of the research study, which choice most effectively uses relevant information to accomplish this goal. Okay, so can you go up again? So basically, the aim is in point number 2, it says that he wanted to understand the mechanics of the structural properties much better. So if you look at point A, his team wanted to better understand the mechanics behind bird nests, uniquely flexible yet cohesive structural properties. So that can be the right answer. So we're gonna just put that in and then go to the B. Researchers used laboratory models that simulated the arrangement of flexible sticks. It's not going to be the answer because it's giving us the method, not the aim behind the study. Can you scroll down to C? Okay, after analyzing the points where sticks touched, okay, that can't be the answer either because it's talking after the method. And then D, as analyzed, that's the conclusion, so it has to be A because that's giving us the aim behind the study.
Exactly. So how did you came up with that answer? Can you please provide it to the other students as well before we start on?
Yeah, so basically, what you do first is look at the question. It's asking the keyword is primary aim. So it can't be B, C, or D because B, B is talking about the method, not the aim. C is talking about what happened after the method. So again, that can't be the aim. And D is talking about the conclusion. So that can't be the aim either. A clearly says that the team wanted to better understand, and that was the aim as talked about in point 2 of the passage.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Hamza. It was a very good response from your side, and the answer in actual reality is also C, also B. So the correct answer is B. As Hamza has previously elaborated as well, I'm going to be going on with that. But before that, I think I have to turn off my camera if it's suitable for you guys.
Sure, no problem.
Perfect.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
Good. Here we are good enough to go. Alright, so when it comes to a rhetorical structured question, we need to understand that it throws a lot of information at us. As we have seen that in this, there was a lot of information. We had to analyze all the information cohesively, and we have to understand that, oh, alright. And we have to understand that when one of these options is going to be correct, so what was the major problem, right? We spent a lot of time. We spent so much time in studying these, and then when we have to study this, because as Hamza was going through the question, he asked me to scroll up, which means that at first he also spent a lot of time studying these notes, and then when he studied the question, he went back to the text. So you can say that it literally took 2 minutes for this one specific question, whereas on average we're going to be having 1 minute and 17 seconds for a question, and there are going to be other questions as well on which we're going to be getting stuck, and we're also going to be utilizing that time. So how we need to understand that we need to reduce the time for this specific question. The first thing that we can do on the SAT is that always read the question first, because when we are going to be reading the question first, we are going to be letting ourselves know that, oh, alright, so this is this specific thing, and it asks us about that specific thing that's going to be asked from us. Like for instance, if we would have read prior to reading the text that what the student actually wanted to do, and in this case it was to present the primary aim of the research study. And if this case we would have already known that the primary aim was what, so it would have been much easier for us to effectively in a short span of time get to the answers. And moreover, we need to understand the structure, and finding this goal is going to be pertinently easy. So there is this approach method towards these types of questions. And out of my approach, I think the first approach is to read the question first, because as mentioned earlier, it's going to be making our life much easier. Then we need to understand what the actual goal is, because when we are going to be reading the question first, it's going to be letting us know about what the question asks about. Because start by reading the questions first and get some more context by reading the bullet information, as I've said earlier. The second step is going to be testing the choices, which we have done in the previous example. That for instance, if this specific option comes in, is it correct?
I
Is
think
it used to it?
just to make it clear for point 1, you're talking about the end bit of the question where it says what exactly is the passage, what exactly does the answer require? Like
Yes.
when it says, and then the student wants to present the primary aim. What's the primary aim? Not the entire passage.
Yes.
Okay.
That's what I was talking about. Because you see, in every question you're going to be seeing about the rhetorical structure, the ending line is going to be the same. Which was most effectively uses relevant information from the notes to accomplish this goal. So you just have to don't stray your focus ahead of that. You just have to focus on this one specific line. The student want to present the primary aim of the research study. That's it. And that's the question that's going to be asking you guys. And the third approach is going to be selecting the choice that matches, which we also did. Selecting the choice that matches. So with this being said, these are the three strategies you have to go on. This is a relatively very easy question, and it has very high chances that you would ensure that this answer goes correct. So the tips for these questions are going to be very simple. The first tip is going to be that you have to simplify the goal. you have to simplify the goal, which means that the simplifier you can make the goal, the easier it will be for you to test the choices, and you need to re-examine the complete goal to distinguish between the remaining choices, because that's extremely important. The second thing is that you have to be strict. Now from here, what we mean to be strict is that you just don't need to be generous with the choices that kind of or almost accomplish that goal, because the details in this question, the specific details are going to be mattering the most. And the third thing that's going to be extremely important is that you need to ignore the grammar. Now what I mean by ignoring the grammar is that you need to ensure that in case if you're going to be making a specific choice, is that going to be based on the information that it contains and not on the grammar that it contains. Like, grammar is not going to be a part for these types of questions. Grammar is always going to be tested in the standard conventions of English questions. So till now we have covered this one domain of the expression and ideas questions, which is rhetorical synthesis. So in case if you guys have any questions, you can let me know, and if you guys have any problem in explaining this concept, you guys can tell me right now, so I can move on.
I think it's good. Let's move on.
Alright, so this was the first part of the expression of ideas questions. The second part is going to be about transitions. So we need to understand that transitions is the most important topic that's going to be tested on your SAT. Like these specific types of questions, you will be expecting like around 7 to 8 transitions questions on your digital SAT, which would make around 20% of your SAT as well. And we cannot we cannot risk these questions, because these questions are relatively easier, and with a lot of practice we can actually get a lot of hands-on towards these questions as well. I'm sorry for the wrong spellings of transitions, and here are the correct spellings. And we need to understand of these transition questions in a specific way. Like for instance, imagine outside of this English world, imagine the transitions in your life that happen daily. For instance, you sleep and then you wake up. There's this transition from sleeping to waking up, right? There's a connection between those two processes. Like you immortality, you die for a certain period of time, but you're alive, and then you wake up and you're in your senses, right? So this is a specific type of transition questions, and how they're actually tested on the digital SAT is that they're going to be connecting the sentences in a way that will tell the reader that how those two sentences are related, which we are going to be discussing further in the class as well. And the relationship between the ideas will be usually falling into 3 categories, right? So there are 3 types of transitions that are going to be tested on your SAT as well. So the first one is going to be agreement and disagreement, that either the two sentences agree or they disagree. The second thing is going to be sequences and order, like are they in a specific order or format. And the third thing is going to be addition and exemplification, and the fourth thing is going to be cause and effect. So these are these 4 types of categories when we categorize them, and I'll be briefly explaining all of these categories in more further detail to you guys. So the agreement and disagreement questions, if the 2 questions are going to be expressing the same ideas, then we may want to use an agreement transition, like for instance we can use similarly, furthermore, moreover. So these are these type of transitions as in general that are going to be utilized when you're going to be going on with the agreement and disagreement questions. Whereas on the other end, if we are going to be having disagreement questions, like for instance we can say that they represent different ideas. So for this part we are going to be understanding that we can use transitions like however, although, despite, And these types of transitions are going to be used to represent a different idea, right? And so in fact, expressing the same idea is going to be used with the transitions like similarly, and furthermore, furthermore is going to be used in additions. So these are these type of transitions that are going to be leading on towards your exemplification questions. And for the third part, we're going to be having cause and effect. So is the for instance, if the second sentence is going to be caused by a consequence of the idea that's presented in the first text, and if so, then we may want to use a cause and effect transition like therefore. I hope that I'm clear until now.
Yes.
Alright, perfect. So with that being said, we need to understand the specific approach towards the transition question. First, we'll go on with the approach, and then we'll practice questions, and then at the remaining 30 minutes of the class, we are going to be doing some hard questions for both the categories. So the approach towards the transition questions. So you also need to understand that this is not the only approach you can go on with. Like there may be other approaches as well which you may find useful, and there are different approaches in different books. You can also find some of the approaches at Khan Academy. So at the end of today, the approach and the strategy that's more suitable to you matters the most, and it's not necessary that you always have to go on with these strategies, because it's not a hard and fast rule, and at the end of the day you just need to ensure that the questions you're going to do are as correct as possible. So for the step 1, we're going to be summarizing the text. Now summarizing the text is extremely important on the SAT, because we cannot just sit there idly. We cannot just like skim the lines after and then just write a summary of 50 to 100 words, because that's not going to be useful, and it's going to be wasting most of our precious time, and we already don't have any time on the digital SAT as well. So we just have to read carefully and summarize the main idea in just 1 to 2 words, right? And I'll show it to you how we can actually do it. And then, for instance, if you're all struggling with even with that, you're unable to understand it, or what is going to be summarizing the text, and I'm unable to do it, then you need to translate each sentence into a simpler bullet point. Translate each sentence into a bullet point. What I mean by that is that you need to understand, for instance, if you go on with a specific one question, you just put a bullet point. You just said that, for instance, let's just suppose that there's this specific sentence. Fishes eat bread happily, right? This is a very simple sentence and almost everyone would be able to make sense out of it. But we need to understand, for a layman who doesn't even know the basics of English, and we would have to explain it to him. We can simply say that that person can make it into 2 words like that. Fishes eat bread happily. So eating bread, how you're going to be writing down the summary, you're going to be writing out this EIT fish HAP, or any other simpler word that's like usable for you or suitable for you at that point. So this is the first step that you're going to be doing on. The second step is going to be identifying the relationship between the two sentences that are going to be given you. So this is the most important thing, because as soon as you understand the relationship between the two sentences, it would hardly take out any time. Like you just know that, alright, if it's a continuous statement, alright, I'm good to go. I can use transitions like furthermore, moreover. But in case if it's like cause and effect, I can use statements like although, therefore, and if it's contradictory, I can use transitions like however. So it's extremely important to identify the relationship, and because ideas within two sentences are going to be moving forward in a specific way, right? So because you cannot say that there's going to be a river always flows in one direction, right? You can never say that it's going to be flowing backwards or that in that case. And similarly is the case with the transition questions which are going to be provided to you on the SAT. And for the step 3, we are going to be selecting the transition that matches the relationship. Again, you have to only select one of the offers a transition that matches with the relationship we have identified, and you just try to plug the transitions into the blank. And if a specific transition is going to be creating the clearest meaning when placed in context, that's going to be the correct option. And for the tips towards these questions are going to be very simple, which include that you have to be flexible. Unlike the cross-check rhetorical synthesis questions, what I mean by being flexible in this question is that there are a variety of transition words and phrases, and the exact transition you expect to see might not be offered by the choices in that case. So in that case, you just have to look out for a transition with a similar function that's going to be provided with that specific transition as well. Like for instance, however can also be represented by some other transition that you most probably don't know. So you just have to be flexible, and you have to understand that if the idea that like contradictory statements are the same, then you have to select that option rather than saying that, oh, alright, I know that however is always there's a hard and fast rule that however is going to be being used for contradictors, so that's going to be creating a lot of problem for you on the SAT. And the second thing which is going to be helpful for you almost around the every SAT question you're going to be going through it is going to be eliminating copycats. Now what I mean by the copycats is that if there are going to be two choices that seem to work in a similar or interchangeable way, you can safely eliminate those, because there are these two options are never going to be right. Because on the SAT questions are organized in a way. Let's understand this. We have A, B, C, and D. There are 4 option choices that are going to be provided to you on the digital SAT, and one is going to be correct in them. And in the case of transition questions, if there's going to be two transitions, for instance, let's just say that there's furthermore, there's moreover, however, and although, right? So let's just suppose there's a specific transition question and we are going to be provided with these 4 options. We can safely eliminate furthermore and moreover because they are continuous, they continue on with the same idea. So option A and option B can be successfully discarded, and now you have left with 2 choices, and seeing the context of the question you can select one of the options. So that's how easy it's going to be getting on. Like on the digital SAT questions, what you can actually do is that you can eliminate the choices, you can reduce the number of errors, and then when you come up towards one point or one option, you see that that's correct, and that's like relatively more easier for you rather than going on each option and saying that, oh, right, I'll put it back in the text and I'll ensure that this thing's correct or not. Am I clear until now?
Yeah.
Mustafa, are you there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm there.
Alright, perfect. So we are just going to be going on with the questions now, if it's suitable for you guys.
Sure.
Perfect. So we are going to be having the transition questions, and these are the relatively harder questions for the transitions parts. And here we go. But in fact, what I'll do is that let me just create a PDF out of these transition questions, and then we can practice these questions. and within this specific website you can select the questions you want and you can export them as a PDF. Alright, so here we go with transition questions with extreme level difficulty, which is a level 3 difficulty, and this is the maximum level of difficulty you can expect on the digital SAT transition questions. So, Hamza, can you please read out the question loud?
Yeah, sure. In her poetry collection, Thomas and Beaulieu, Rita Duff interweaves the titular characters' personal stories with broader historical narratives. She places Thomas's journey from the American South to the Midwest in the early 1900s within the larger context of the Greater Migration. Blank Duff sets events from Beaulieu's personal life against the backdrop of the U.S. Civil Rights Movement. So, it's four choices specifically, thus, regardless, and similarly. So,
Alright,
if you,
yeah, go ahead.
no, you go on.
Okay, so as you can see that within these two sentences, we are going to be having two sentences, right? She places Thomas' journey from American South to the Midwest in the early 90s with a larger context of great migration. And then the second sentence is that Dove set even from Bueller's personal life against the backdrop of the US civil rights movement. So in this specific context, what we can see is that how it's going to be affecting the civil rights movement. So similarly cannot be an option as in terms of my critical knowledge. Regardless can also be not a specific thing, so it leaves out towards option A and option B. Hamza, what do you think is going to be the correct answer?
Yeah, just give me a few seconds.
No problem. In the meantime, Mustafa can touch on with this question.
Okay, so it's either A or D. I'm just thinking about it. So, I, yeah.
I think it's going to be A because they're talking about a specific example of what they're saying as well.
Exactly. Exactly. The answer is A. And now let's just read the.
It is D.
It is the.
I think we messed up.
Yes. So it is D basically because she is giving an example about the broader historical narrative, and the greater migration has no link with the civil rights movement.
Oh no,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
get
I
it
get it
because
now.
yeah,
I get
because
it. I get it.
the name of the book is Thomas and Beulah. First she's talking about Thomas,
So it is D.
then she's talking about Beulah. So similarly to Thomas, the same goes for Beulah.
Perfect. And these are the types of questions you're going to be expecting on the
Yes, yes,
digital
yes.
SAT, and I'm going to be posting further videos on the YouTube channel about these specific questions, and you guys can subscribe to the channel to stay connected for further upcoming videos. And that's it from my part, and I hope to see you guys in the next video. Till then, take care and bye.